Today, we are speaking with Guru Banavar, the Chief Technology Officer of Viome, who will be providing some insight into his company and how to get a job there. Who are you and what does your company do?
Hi, my name is Guru Banavar. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Viome Inc. Viome is a company dedicated to eliminating chronic disease. That's our mission. And within that mission, we believe that a holistic systems biology perspective of what is going on in your body is the key to understanding why you have chronic disease and what we could do to improve it. We also believe that very important changes to your lifestyle are going to be the best way to address chronic disease. That means basically changing your food habits, changing your living habits, changing your stress levels and so forth. So those are the kinds of things through which you can improve your life and reduce any chronic disease. As you know, 50% of the world's population has some kind of chronic disease. You know, people have diabetes or irritable bowel syndrome or depression or, all of these things, including all the way up to cancer, right? So everybody knows people around them who have chronic disease. So if we are successful and when we are successful, we would have reduced or eliminated chronic disease through very basic lifestyle changes. So my job within the company is to build a technology platform for making this happen. So that means we build first and foremost, a data platform by which we get samples from you and turn that into data and understand the patterns within that data. And second of all, we build an engagement platform, which means that we have a way to get people to engage with us, ask questions, find out information about themselves, about others, about the foods they can eat, about the lifestyle they should lead, about the supplements they can have, and so forth. So our platform is fundamentally about learning what is going on in your biology on the one hand, and engaging with you and giving you information so you can lead a better lifestyle so that you can reduce chronic disease. So that's what we do. And finally, I have to say that our company has been around for about 3 years now. And we have more than 100,000 customers around the world, more than 17 countries at this point in time. And we have the world's largest database of microbiomes. Microbiome is the set of microbes that live in your body, in your gut mainly. And we end up getting, for every person who buys our service, we send them a kit through which we get their stool sample, which we process through a sequencer and then through our bioinformatics and through our data science algorithms to understand what is going on in their gut microbiome. And through the gut microbiome, we are able to turn our insights into food recommendations based on what is going on in your microbiome, as well as eventually what is going on in your human part of your cells as well. So we understand your system as a whole, and we try to give you recommendations through an app, knowing everything we can know about your biology.
Are you hiring? If so, for what?
So let me talk about the scientific and the technical aspects of what we are hiring for. We have obviously a very significant business side as well, which I'm not going to talk about. My role means I'm going to talk about the science and technology part of what we do. So our company is a very multidisciplinary company. We have people all the way from biologists, medical people, nutritionists, to data scientists, bioinformaticians, engineers, traditional software engineers. We have people who do cloud computing. We have people who do IT solutions and IT infrastructure. We do essentially the entire range of microbiology and lab sciences as well, including molecular biology, as in sequencing of data, prepping samples, all of those kinds of jobs as well. So our entire science and technology portfolio essentially includes all of the life sciences disciplines, plus all of the information technology disciplines, or the math sciences, the mathematical sciences disciplines. So that's kind of the space of disciplines that we are hiring for at the moment. I will also say that at any given point in time, there are different needs in the company. So we might be hiring more on the biology side one day. We may be hiring more on the data side one day. We may be hiring more on the lab side another day, and so forth. But we are constantly hiring for science and technology professionals. One last thing I want to mention is we also do a lot of clinical studies and clinical trials, which means that we do go out to doctors, hospitals, health networks, and so forth, and look for people with specific diseases through whom we get insights into what their biology looks like when they have diseases at particular stages. So for example, we do research with Memorial Sloan Kettering or NYU Langone Medical Center here in New York City, or we do research with universities and medical hospitals. And part of that has to do with collecting samples, getting medical diagnosis and matching the two and deciding what is going on within a particular person's body when they go through a particular disease.
Can you tell me more about your interview process?
So when we think about AI, we're thinking about AI in a pretty broad sense, right? So we think about all the stages of data processing, as in very large scale molecular data processing, through bioinformatic algorithms, through data science, machine learning algorithms, and through knowledge representation and reasoning, which comes from domain experts who have understood what are the published results in the field of pathway activity within the microbiome, for example, and so forth. So AI in our world basically means that you may be required to talk to biologists or translational scientists, understand what the domain knowledge that they would like to explore or interpret within the data that we already have, and represent that knowledge and use reasoning systems to come up with inferences of various kinds. So that's one part of your AI engineering job. The other part of your AI engineering job is to look at very large scale data. That is samples that comes in through our labs, getting sequenced through bioinformatics and what have you. People will need to understand how to scale or build scalable pipelines for large-scale data processing of molecular data, like the ones that I was talking about. So that's the kind of the range of things that we talk about in AI engineering roles. The way we would normally interview such a person, this can be like an advanced graduate, person with a graduate degree, or like a master's or a PhD, or it could be a person who has a great amount of experience in the fields that I just mentioned, working at pharma companies or university labs or other kinds of companies that do work like ours. The way we normally do these interviews is to first screen the person to figure out if they have the relevant background that we're looking for, just to kind of go through and understand their resume and figure out whether each item that they've written down in their resume is fully understood by us. And if there are any gaps in the resume that we can talk about that and figure out if they have all the kinds of experiences we are looking for. So that's the first step. It's usually just a phone call. After that, we may decide to give people that pass our screening test a take-home exercise, which could be a very simple kind of a data set that we'd like them to analyze, do a standard set of problems related to that data set, and show us that they are educated enough to be able to go on the cloud, like an AWS EC2 instance with maybe some data on S3 or something like this, and do their Jupyter Python notebook, for example, that does the analysis and tell us what the output is. And we look at whether people understand the fundamentals of mathematical sciences, meaning fundamentals of statistics, fundamentals of data processing, fundamentals of data science, rather than all the buzzword compliance. People come in with lots of, buzzwords. They say, I understand, I don't know, transfer learning, things like this, right? So they probably went through some YouTube videos about transfer learning. That's all good. But what we ask people about usually and what we test them on is whether their foundational understanding of the concepts is solid. And it's very easy to tell whether somebody understands the concepts or not, because when you talk to them, the way they explain things can be very revealing in terms of whether they explain it conceptually or they kind of look at it very superficially as a set of tools and sort of recipes to follow. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for people who understand the underlying principles and the concepts. That's what we look for during these screening and the take-home exercise. And if a person passes the take-home exercise, we bring them in for an in-person interview, which usually lasts for about a half a day. That could be 4 or 5 people within our team who talk to them about potentially the kinds of things they did during their take-home exercise, potentially some of the projects that they've done in the past. Maybe some of us can ask them about a new problem that we have not talked to them about before and ask them to kind of brainstorm about the possible approaches they may follow during the interview process. So all of those things we do in the in-person interview. And at the end of the in-person interview, the 4 or 5 of us who have dealt with the candidate will all sit down, share our evaluations of the various angles that we all approached the interviews. Typically, we would have already predetermined, the different perspectives from which each one of our interviewers will approach a candidate. And so we'll put all of those impressions together at the end of this, and we make a decision, and then we communicate with the candidate.
Do you hire any junior roles or have internships?
Do have a lot of internships in all of the areas that I've mentioned before. We also occasionally have entry-level job roles where we bring in people to, for example, to do clinical studies, for example, to do some of the basic, electronic data capture work that we do, or people to test our platform, both on the data side or on the app side. We also bring in people who can build a sort of basic set of, analytical algorithms, and those can be entry-level positions as well. So majority of the jobs are a little more advanced, but I think internships are a very good place to start to get into the field that we are interested in.
What is your ideal team?
So I have, through many jobs, learned that the ideal team is actually not a very large team. Okay, and it's just a team which has a particular kind of dynamic and a particular kind of capability. I call these super teams. I think the magic number for the size of a team that is ideal, in my experience, is something like 20 to 30 people. And a team that has 20 to 30 people, the right 20 to 30 people, can pretty much do anything we want. Okay, and these are people who are generally hyper productive, they're hyper collaborative, they are all people with a growth mindset because they're all learning from each other, they're all highly mission driven, and everybody has something that they can do better than anybody else in the team. And so everybody is essential for the team, and everyone knows who to go to get the kind of expertise that they need, because all the expertise that is needed is within the team. And finally, I would say that the ideal kind of person who can be in this ideal kind of team is the kind of person that I think of as a kind of a T-shaped person. A T-shaped person, meaning you have a vertical and a horizontal, right? A vertical is you have an area of expertise that is quite deep. You do understand that area really well, and you're able to answer questions or solve problems in that area of expertise better than anybody else on the team. At the same time, you have the horizontal part of the team where you're able to use that knowledge and reach out to the adjacent people and you're able to collaborate and you're able to connect the dots between what you can do and what other people can do, that's the horizontal part of the T. So that kind of a T-shaped person is the kind of person that I typically look for. So that means they need to have the deep capability, but they also have to have the breadth to be able to connect what they know to what other people can use. And I've built many teams over my career. Now it's, like a quarter century career. And I've built probably, 10 different teams from scratch. And I always aim to build a team of that nature. And when I get to the right team, I know that we can do anything we want. And typically they're, that expectation is borne out in my experience.
What is the best thing about your company?
I think the best thing about our company is our mission of chronic disease elimination, or fighting against chronic disease and making it not a matter of bad luck, but an option that you can choose and you can change your lifestyle with. Also, I think that our company has a tremendous amount of scientific rigor in what we do. We actually believe in having a strong scientific foundation for everything we do. And finally, we also think that the benefits of what we do has to ultimately go back to every single individual. And individuals have to be in control of their own health. They should make their own choices, and they should have all the information they need to make those choices. So those are the kinds of sort of values that I consider are unique in our company, and that's why I think our company is special.
What advice would you give every job seeker?
Advice I would give every job seeker is to have a really good question to ask the person that is going to interview you. Make the person who is going to interview you think about the answer. This should be a philosophical or a conceptual question that should get the person who's interviewing you maybe a little bit outside of the normal zone of interviewing, and think about what the big picture is that they're trying to build, and what is the long-term direction of the company or the institution that they're part of. The person that I usually end up hiring and I like to work with are people who teach me something by asking me great questions. So in fact, that's what I end every interview with. I say, do you have any questions for me? And in fact, that is the most important question I ask them, because I evaluate them on how good their questions are at the end of the interview, rather than how good their answers are. I evaluate them on how good their questions are.
Thanks everyone for watching. If you are interested in learning more about this opportunity, check out Viome's posting on the Skilled Referral Board.